Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Ignite Talk. Our staff volunteers and also Sally, welcome as well.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Farida. And good evening to you all. I was behind the scene trying to get us started. And a warm welcome to you to add to all that Farida has said. Welcome to EduSpots. Welcome, Sally. And I can see quite a number of catalysts and staff present as well. To get a conversation started, we're going to say something about EduSpots, and we're going to look at the International Day of the Girl Child, what orchestrated this global event, and also why this Ignite Talk matters to us at EduSpots before we even let our guests come in. And I'm sure you just watched a video, and for those of you who joined on time, of our Ignite Girl Strand, that was last year. And you heard some of the testimonials from some of the girls, which for me was truly inspiring. And so concerning the International Day of the Girl Child, it is celebrated on the 11th of October. I don't think it's too late for us to commemorate this event every year. And its purpose is to recognize girls, is to recognize their rights and the unique challenges they face around the world. And for 2024, the theme is on girls' vision for the future. And to provide a bit of context again on why this event is globally observed, even though some achievements have been made in promoting girls' rights and addressing the unique challenges that they face, it is said that about 1 out of 5 young women aged between 20 and 24 years are married as children. And that means that their dreams, aspirations sometimes are just probably curtailed in favor of someone's, excesses, so to speak. And about 1 out of 4 adolescent girls compared to boys are not in any form of education, employment, or training. So alongside other issues confronting the girl child, this particular event or this global event has become necessary for us to not only have dialogue, but also renew our commitment to prioritizing the rights of the girl child. And at EduSpots, what we do is to connect, train, and equip over 300 local catalysts. And catalysts are normally volunteers, community members, who are passionate about the issues confronting education and wider developmental issues in their local communities. What we do is to train these catalysts through our learner strands, through our spots, but then within the spots or the learning spaces, we have strands that run in these spaces, and those include EduLets, which focuses on our literacy our program for junior high school students, EcoSTEM, which considers a blend of environmental sustainability practices and practical STEM education, Ignite Equity, which until recently used to be Ignite Girls. But then on the recommendation of our catalysts, we decided to include the boys because they have needs too. And so today we no longer have Ignite Girls, which used to be the main focus in previous years, but Ignite Equity educates, focuses on a holistic education of the child from kindergarten to primary 3. And we thrive on a community-led approach, as I said, and what it means is that we don't do things for communities, but then we expect that we will empower communities to be able to define their own futures. And you'll find us in 50 local communities across Ghana and Kenya. And over the years, we have impacted over 10,000 children who use our spaces. So our Ignite Talk is just an approach to empower volunteers, staff members, and wider stakeholders. We assemble all who are like-minded in this space. And so welcome once again if you are joining us this evening. And these talks are free for everyone to attend. And just as you've realized, they take place on Zoom. And so if you have joined us, I hope that is going to be a memorable time for you. But before I continue, do well to share your thoughts in the chat box. Let's get interactive. It's not going to be, I'm not sure it's going to be a one-way conversation. And so let's get interactive in the space. Feel free to use the chat box as you listen to our esteemed guest share her thoughts and ideas, and let's make it interactive. All right. So to get a conversation started, I'm pleased and honored to introduce our guest for tonight, and she's in the person of Miss Sally Ofori-Yeboah. And Sally is an EduSpots Advisory Group member. She has a wealth of experience in program and project management, capacity building, and civil society organization leadership. She's an executive advisor at the Campaign for Female Education, Comfort Ghana, and she served as Comfort Ghana's head of programs, as well as Comfort Ghana's national director. And she holds a Commonwealth Executive Masters in Public Administration from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and she also holds a bachelor's degree in geography from the University of Ghana and a certificate in executive management and leadership. I'm pleased, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome Sally. Sally, are you with us? At this point, I think I can get some virtual claps in the chat box.
I am Lawrence. Thank you very much. I wish you had kept to the first paragraph of nothing else, but thank you very much. And hello, good evening, everyone. I hope we've had a good day. It's Monday. Interestingly, for Comfort Ghana, it's for Comfort, the whole Comfort. It's a well-being day. So
Wow.
Comfort did not work today. We're all off. Also, as part of our efforts to celebrate the girl child and all the work that we did around girls, the IDG on Friday. So today is a holiday for staff of Comfort. But I'm happy to be here, and thanks for the invitation. I appreciate it very much. Any conversation about girls, young women excites me. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. So Sally,
Lawrence, if you don't yes.
to get a conversation started, and I suppose this will be very conversational.
Yes.
Probably, yeah, we can start on that on a light note of what were your experiences growing up as a girl? If you can share a bit about your background, what childhood looked like for you growing up. I think we can start a conversation from there. And of course, all of us, and you can share with us in the chat box what you had as your dream growing up. What did your childhood look like for you, Sally?
Thanks, Lawrence. And I'm happy to share. I have a personal space. I run South Safe Space, and it's a platform for girls to just come and meet and talk and chat. So I find myself sharing and repeating this over and over again. So I'm a girl from the coast. I born and bred in the Western region, a native of the Central region, of course, schooled in both the Western region and the Greater Accra region. But I grew up not seeing my parents married. I think my parents were married for just about 2 years or so. And so it was myself and my younger brother. So from a broken home. And my mom, may her soul rest in peace. I normally say that perhaps was very young, lived by herself for the most part of her life. So perhaps was missing some grounding, so perhaps she wasn't ready for marriage. So she left. And my dad had to pass me on from one person to the other, one relative to the other. So I remember I lived with about 6, 7 women. Some were relatives, some were not relatives. But I think at a point he noticed how that was affecting me because between 3 and 5 years, I just was sort of a house help in other people's homes. And when they didn't have enough for you or didn't want to accommodate you, they'll ship you to the next person. So I ended up in a boarding house. My dad did everything possible to take me to a boarding house. So I ended up in a boarding house at age 6. That was my safe space. And so, but for that boarding house, I think my narrative would have been different. So, yeah, Lawrence, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah,
In terms of
absolutely.
aspirations, I just had in mind everything I'd seen in the homes that I lived in. I saw how the kids were pampered, how life was good for some kids. Of course, some were girls and some were boys as well, but I think most of my cousins are girls. So life was okay. If your parents were comfortable and had resources, then you went to the best schools and you could be served. And yeah, your tides, your trajectory would be very different. But if you didn't have the resources as well, which is the case of most sub-Saharan African countries, then the narrative would also be very different. I don't think I had aspirations growing up. I just wanted to thrive. I just wanted to survive and live. Um, but I think the first time I dreamt about being somebody was in junior high school. And I thought I would be in rural development at the time. That was what I had in my rural development. And you see how aspirations work.
Yeah.
I'm not too far from that. I've spent most of my career in rural engagement or development work. So that dream was valid. Yeah.
Interesting. And I mean, I think you mentioned, drawing from your past experiences of not living with your parents for a while. And I recall that when I was teaching at Dichamso in Kumasi, at the time when I went into the school, one major issue I encountered was the fact that most of the girls lived with foster parents, and it was an urban community. And so I always say this, that they some of the parents didn't really want their wards, their biological wards, so to speak, to be in the public schools. And so when they bring a girl from the rural community, they will just, I want to use the appropriate word, but then bring her to the public school, and then whatever happens is none of their business, And I think even from my own experience, I've really learned a lot about the dynamics of urban education and most of the challenges that these girls went through. If you are just joining us, we are speaking to Ofori-Yeboah, who is an advisory board member at EduSpots. And today the conversation is about the dream that girls have, the challenges that they face, what holds them back, and we are exploring how we can support them in overcoming these barriers. If you just joined, please feel free to use the chat box. But then, Sally, to continue, in Ghana, we've seen an increase in initiatives aimed at encouraging girls to take leadership roles in their communities. Yet, I know that many young girls still feel unsure about how to step into these roles, especially when they face societal or familial pressure to conform to traditional expectations. Can you share with us how you think we can empower girls to gain the necessary leadership skills? You are in a leadership position now, drawing from your experiences. How can we empower them to gain the necessary leadership skills to not only stand tall, but to help others in their communities, to help themselves as well?
Thanks, Lawrence. So I don't know if we've engaged with the data quite well, but there was a midterm evaluation for SDG 4. And the data did reflect how slowly we are progressing on SDG 4 in terms of supporting girls or educating girls. And interestingly, there was a decrease from the data. I think there's a 12 million decrease of dropout, but there's a 19 million increase in sub-Saharan Africa. So it continues to be a very valid conversation, supporting girls' education or supporting girls to thrive and to do well. For me, when we're discussing IDG or we're discussing girls, we're discussing their aspirations, I prefer to take it out of the conversation. It's not about girls and boys. It's not about competition. It's not about one against the other. Anytime we're talking girls' education, then what about the boys? It's become the recent craze. What about the boys? That's not the conversation. If you go into a rural school, a typical rural school, and you find 12 teachers or 12 teaching staff, the likelihood that about 10 or 9 of them are male is high. And in some schools, you will not even find a female teacher at all. It speaks to the opportunity that we have given or the access that boys have had for several years. How the system has supported boys' education for some time and excluded girls. So this is about what more do we need to do to allow the girls in, because we're losing if the girls are not showing up in the way that they need to show up. We're losing as a globe, we're losing as a human race, we're losing as a people. There's value in even agricultural outputs when girls are educated and supporting agric. There's value in our GDP when girls are contributing. So the conversation is, if we're not deliberate and intentional about supporting girls, we're losing as a people. Our children will lose. The continent will lose. The globe will lose. So and this is about evidence-based decision-making. IDG came because there's evidence that girls are lacking behind, and we need to do a bit more to push. Peer mentoring is super. If you want girls to thrive in a space, I want to believe there are quite a number of teachers here. I know you interact with a lot of teachers. So peer mentoring is space. There's a narrative that women are their own enemies. That's not true. It's something that we just keep repeating to even girls, and then they grow up with that narrative in their heads. But if you have a typical class of girls and you find a way to put the girls together, and guide how they connect with each other, girls feel safe talking to each other about their issues. So peer mentoring is an absolute, and when people have walked a particular journey and they are sharing or supporting others to come through that journey, it is relatively easier. Girls would not go to their teachers as often as they would go to a peer mentor, to address issues because of stigma, because of abuse, they don't want to be tagged and all that. So girls are safe with each other. Again, if we want girls to do well, I think, particularly in our classrooms, you see how, I don't know, I haven't engaged with the materials we're teaching, we're using these days, but there's a lot of curriculum review. So I'm hoping that instances where some careers are attached to boys and other careers, just the graphics in the book gives an indication of what a girl can do and what a boy cannot do. Some of those things, if you're a teacher and you're using a material that is, you're talking about a scientist, and the scientist just has one picture, and it's the picture of a male, you're doing a disservice to the girls in your classroom. Imagine that's your daughter. You would want to inspire your daughter to do whatever she would want to do. So even if the book is painting that picture, there's some addition that you can make, there's some contribution that you can make to shift that narrative. And then also just for us in the space as development workers or as people in the education system, the education system itself, I think, excludes girls. You can celebrate an MP giving a 3-bedroom, a 3 classroom accommodation, 3 whatever to a school, and you would walk in there, just use the washroom or the urinal, typically we call it a urinal, just use the urinal to measure how inclusive the space is for the girl. The boy can wash, it's typically some blocks they have put up and a bare floor, and so a boy can walk in there, and then pee or urinates and is comfortable and goes out. And a girl who, per her biological makeup, through no fault of hers, has to go through a period, 3, 4, 5 days a week, would go and use the same washroom. And sorry for it being, maybe I'm being too graphic, may drip a few drops of blood, would not want to use that washroom and would rather stay at home for the entire duration of the period, which could last 5, 6 days. And so that's where we're recording absenteeism. Every month. It is said that 1 in 3 girls stay home during their period. 1 in 3. So they miss 5 days of classes. So there are a lot of ways that we in the space, young people, educationists, people working with children, can be very intentional and deliberate about being aware about the unique challenges that girls face and how you can push them a little more or provide a helping hand to spare them on. Introduce them to friends, pair them up with each other, give them accountability partners, and guide how that goes. Coach them how they can serve each other, talk to each other, bounce off ideas, and trust each other to do that. As educationists, be deliberate about supporting policy shifts in the space. If the books come and they are skewed, as you teach, balance the books, because in the end, we all lose if we're not deliberate about that balance. Thanks, Lawrence.
I was muted. I mean, the conversation is getting interesting, and thank you, Sally. I mean, you've tackled quite a number of issues. You've talked about the right systemic changes that we need to be able to create that framework for the girls. You've mentioned being deliberate about this, touching on the mindsets that we need to develop as people, and I love the approach when it comes to the curriculums and how well we can ensure that the curriculum is gender responsive, right? So that the girls can also get to see themselves in the curriculum. And you've also touched on peer mentorship, and of course, your point regarding male dominance in schools. At EduSpots, we are still asking questions about how we can get more female catalysts into our spaces. And just as you mentioned, 70% of our catalysts are teachers, and we're still asking ourselves, where are the female teachers in our catalyst space? And so it's really good you brought this up. Within the Ignite Equity strand, we're also looking at peer mentorship as one of the core components of how the girls can graduate and begin to support themselves. But then now that we have the boys in, I don't know if it will be a nice idea for boys to, I'm not sure they'll be comfortable disclosing issues to boys anyway. But then feel free to share your thoughts in the chat box as well as the conversation goes on. But then I think, Sally, on the same note, when it comes to gender unresponsiveness in schools, I don't want us to drift away from that path because you've already launched us into that space. And we know that unfortunately many schools around the world, including in Ghana, remain gender unresponsive. And you've mentioned some of these things, whether it's through outdated curricula on equal access to resources. You mentioned toilet facilities, for instance. In your view, can you go further into the specific changes that you think schools should implement to become more gender responsive? Yeah.
Well, there are a few more that are, I think, are low-hanging fruits, and one that stands out, especially when we're struggling with female teachers or role models in the system. In school, when we're discussing leadership, assigning roles, there must be no gender lens to roles. Compound prefects, if it's about cleaning, it should not be about girls. If it's leadership, these days there's boys prefect and there's girls prefect. So the overall school prefect has to be a boy, and then the deputy has to be a girl. Those are spaces that we can be very deliberate about, so that there's a good balance. There's a good balance. There aren't leadership roles that are specific to boys or girls, because girls need to see that these things are very possible. They can do it. In their homes, when there are these balances tied to chores, the school is always a safe space for girls. And it's one of the spaces that, as much as possible, we must be deliberate about pushing girls to deliver in those spaces as well, and not make them very gender specific. Again, if you are talking about supporting girls, then you must have the conversation with boys, even how boys support girls. And it continues to be one of the reasons why perhaps we're struggling even with teen pregnancies and all of that in schools, because there isn't that balanced conversation in school about maturation issues, and even how a teacher supports boys to support girls, and to recognize, even you, the teacher, when a girl is absent from school, what's your interpretation of the girl's absence from school? It's not just mere absence. Yes, there could be chores, but she could be on her menses. She could be on her menses. And sometimes, and for some girls, these are painful experiences. Already she's coming to school, she's coming to sit on this hard desk. We will go for assembly. We still do assembly, right? Boys stand in a specific row, girls stand in another row, they are separated, and all of those. We can do things different, very differently. We can try different things. Leadership makes them up, have a balanced leadership. Try a girl being the head of the school. It's possible, and you'll be amazed at how that will be done. It is not a competition between the two groups. As a continent and as a people, we need to be deliberate about pushing the girls. Use the materials you're using in school, change it. Of course, you can't change it, but balance it when you're discussing it in class, and just be deliberate about going an extra mile to support the girl. So those are some of the ways I think they can be low-hanging. A teacher can do these things themselves without incurring the displeasure of anyone within the system. And then we cannot give excuses that the whole curriculum has to go through a reform for the pictures to change, for the descriptions about various careers to change. As you explain them in class, you can engage with the materials differently. As you provide, I don't think GES tells us that boys must be leaders. So these are things that we can do within our spaces a bit more differently. In EduSpots, when all the kids come together in their learning, balance it. Let girls take leadership roles as well, to manage the group and see how that plays. Give them feedback, and so these are small things that we can do as individuals to support the space.
Interesting. And I mean, it's you're coming from that angle of teaching with empathy, always putting yourself in the shoes of that girl, understanding. Should we say they are unique? Should we? I mean, I know that in some discourses, we are not supposed to ascribe and say they are unique, because that suggests that I don't know that whether that entrenches that sense of inequality. Should we say that girls are unique, or they are special, or we should say that they are just like everyone?
Lawrence, the biological makeup makes things different.
Yeah.
So if you say unique, you are not at fault. If you say special, you are not at fault. Because of the biological makeup, which we have, through no fault of theirs or ours. That's how we're made up. So the system has to sort of support the makeup of the girl. And that's an extra layer of support you're requiring. It's painful that as a country, girls would have to buy sanitary towels, sanitary pads, for instance, at a very high cost of about 6-7 cedis. So you're imagining a family that cannot even afford 5 Ghana cedis a day. They feed directly from their farm, get a few things and balance things out. But then they're thinking about getting the girl a sanitary pad every month. And it is a taxed product. So that girl carries the weight of all of that month on month as she sits in the class and you teach all of that you're teaching on the whatever you're doing. She's processing all of that information. 5 days in a week, she's sitting and she's nervous, thinking if she sold herself, she'll get up, she will not be confident, the boys will tease her, and all of that. So she comes to class with all of that, quote unquote, excess baggage. So she must be special.
Yeah.
It is not a normal day all the time. So she must be special. And saying that she's special should not be taken out of. It's just that we need to be extra thoughtful about the challenges that young girls face, particularly young girls for rural communities. We just have to come to that realization that it is not, they don't just wake up in the morning and life goes on as usual. Someone has to be thoughtful about them.
Interesting. And I mean, you mentioned they come into, for example, a classroom space with loads of things going through their heads, loads of things they might have encountered at home, their bodies. And it brings us to the conversation of self-confidence and how that relates to their vision for the future in the context of the social cultural conditions they find themselves in. And of course, in Ghana, you realize that mental health support is, I don't want to say it's nothing good to write home about, but yeah, I don't want to paint a negative picture. Sometimes we always paint negative pictures of things, even though we know, but yeah. So when it comes to how well we can build the self-confidence for girls in terms of supporting them build their own sense of resilience, what do you think are some of the key ways we can go about this in supporting the mental health for girls?
Create safe spaces for them to talk.
Interesting.
Just create safe spaces. That is why when you said you are no longer doing Ignite Girls, it's like, well, I've been on your platform a couple of times and I keep saying it's great to have both gender come together, which is the norm. They're together in class and everything. But those safe spaces for girls to talk are very important. They share their stories and they learn from each other's stories. So we can't take that away from them. If you also have whether teachers, senior persons that engage with girls and you are showing empathy, when they come and they share with you, be a confidant. One out of the stats tell us that 56% of girls would go through some form of gender-based violence in school. From home, the journey to school and in school, 56% will go through some form of gender-based violence. Whether they are meeting the person on the road, whether it is boys bullying, whether it is the teasing in the class, whether it's the teacher using some terms that make her feel uncomfortable, whether it's the quote-unquote teacher hitting on her, and all of that, corporal punishment, all of those things, are things that girls fear. And so do not find school exciting at some point in their lives. So encourage friendships, support and promote friendships in school. Be a safe space for a girl to talk to. Get more role models, especially in a school that there aren't many men. The few women in the system, bring them to the table, have them have conversations with the girls, But as a teacher, particularly if you're a mentor, be a safe space for the girl to talk without judgment. Let her be able to come and share with you. Again, always picture her as your daughter. She may be your daughter today, your daughter tomorrow, and all. So let's sow the right seeds for them. Yeah, just create spaces for girls to talk, to air out their views and to share their challenges, and to hear
Which
how
can be very
other people are
therapeutic.
navigating. Yes, I think it is. I think it is. And we learn, even as older women, we learn a lot from each other's stories and how they navigated it. And for me as a leader, whether it was my role as a national director or supporting Ghana, I moved from Ghana and supporting the region, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and others. There's this imposter syndrome that's always knocking at your door. You can't do it. You can't do it. Hey, you are not good enough. So there's this thing that's always, going on in your head. But the more you sit with other women and talk about it, then you're okay, so this is not just me. A is going through it, B is going through it. So it's the same. We navigate it differently, but it's the same. And then it gives you some reassurance. So safe spaces to talk and have conversations and learn how people managed it, is a great way to support girls, to show up for themselves and continue to build resilience.
Interesting. And Sally, how do we address issues of sensitivity in those safe spaces? Because sometimes, whereas we want to create safe spaces, some girls might also shy away from wanting to air their views. They might also want one-on-one conversations. I suppose that's another kind of safe space. But then, how do we address issues of sensitivity within those safe? Assuming you're having a group of 10 girls.
10 girls together, talk about general things that benefit them.
Okay.
But you can just a maximum of 3 girls is a solid safe space. But you must so Lawrence, if you want to support girls and you're a teacher or you're a mentor, you have to be deliberate. The norm does not do it. And there's data that tells us that it is comprehensive and holistic support that helps girls to thrive and to flourish. It cannot be touch point. So you must have a mentor who once a while will connect with 2 or 3 girls. What's on your mind? And then they just talk. 2, 3 girls. That's all. I know there are thousands of girls in the system, but it's possible to give girls a safe space to talk. If it's a group of 10, 15 girls, there are general issues that you can talk about. But that's where we're also nurturing confidentiality and, showing up in other people's cases without, bickering about it and passing it on and all. We're nurturing them and we're grooming them. And so that's where we talk about confidentiality and how they keep other people's issues to their chest. So that's also part of the training. But you must be deliberate about mentoring if you really want to do it. Just keep 2, 3 girls at a time. And it's only 5, 10 minutes. Then what's on your mind now? A few minutes they would share. They share once, you keep it, they would come back and share.
Interesting. I mean, anytime I'm reviewing the curriculum, I review the Ignite Equity curriculum, and sometimes when we get to sexual harassment or the period project, for instance, I'm always quite skeptical about whether we should get the boys involved in that space. I mean, there was a time I was reviewing the curriculum, and there was a point where the drafter said, "Okay, we'll separate the boys here," and then I'm like, why don't we get the boys in that space to have an open conversation? But I think this is providing some clarity on how I can also approach my review going forward. But then, Sally, I mean, if you're joining the conversation, please do all to prepare your questions. Very soon, I'll hand over to you to be at the forefront of the discussion. While you're listening, please do all to prepare your questions, drop them in the chat box, and I'm sure Sally will be glad to respond. But Sally, drawing from experience, I mean, there's this whole issue about the career choices for girls. You've mentioned some of these in your presentation. But then drawing from experience working with girls, what do you think is becoming the decisive factor now? Is it the case that we are creating more opportunities for girls to go into careers like STEM? Is it the case that the girls are now kind of seeing more opportunities in these spaces, and for that matter, they want to go there themselves? What is defining the kind of career choices that girls are making these days?
Thanks, Lauren. Multiple stuff, multiple factors. And interestingly, you did talk about urban education and rural education.
Yeah.
If you go into the rural communities and you speak to 100 girls, the likelihood that they would want to be teachers and nurses are very high, like 80%, 90% would be very high. Of course, if you come to the urban, the difference here is role modeling and exposure. Because in the rural community, all they're seeing is the nurses in their green uniform, or they go to the hospital and they have experiences with the nurses, or they're seeing their teachers in the spaces and they want to be teachers. You would go to the rural community and you may never come across any STEM expert. In fact, where is the technology? How are they even encountering the technology? The best you would find perhaps is a mobile money vendor that they know is able to use technology, use a phone or something. So if there has to be, again, I'm always saying deliberate and intentional, because that's what it would take. I have two young women that I met, let me say 8 thereabout years ago. I was interviewing them for tertiary scholarship, and these young women had excelled from their WASI. Super great, beautiful. They strung the A's for you, and the papers looked good. One came into the interview from Kumasi, even though she completed Bolga Girls. Good grades, came in from Kumasi. She was in some chop bar pounding fufu and, doing the job. Yeah. And when she even came for the interview, I had to sort of take her to I was in the hotel at the time because I had traveled to do the job, to go and freshen up before she came for the interview. Then there's this other girl who also from, is it China? There's some space some name in Bolga. So these two great girls. One of them accepted the guidance to choose a course and to go into the university without any hassle. We had the conversation, she understood. She eventually went to UDS. She did mathematics, statistics, something. In the end, she topped the whole year group, got an award and recognition. The other young lady with excellent grades told me I had to engage the young lady's brother for his consent on which school the sister should go to and which university she should go to. So eventually, we had options for her, but she ended up in one of the universities. But midway, they took her bride price as well. And so she did just 2 years of the university. Fast forward as we speak now, she has 3 girls. And every now and then she's texting you for support, for food and all of that. This other person who accepted support started using her stipend to weave baskets and all of that, got women in her community, mobilized women. She currently has over 700 women from 4 communities who weave baskets for her. And she set up the organization that ships the baskets to Germany and wherever. She's a big time, she's sitting on cash. The difference was career guidance. The difference was someone just being there to support them. Of course, there are all the social norms, the gender, the patriarchal issues, and all of those things. But career guidance is critical in supporting girls make decisions because they are not exposed to what is possible. Even if you're in Ghana and you're choosing options, once your WASI comes, your options are very limited. As soon as you step outside the corridors of Ghana, you can be doctor for the nail, doctor for the thumb, doctor for... The options are wide, very varied. So the barest we can give is guidance to not allow any boy or girl to make decisions. A 16-year-old mind. Yes, the aspirations are great, but talk through, some aspirations with them. Talk through prospects, where the future is going, AI and all of that. So there's a dynamic, rural, urban, exposure, limited options in those spaces. Most of the girls I supported, I interacted with, they will tell you, Auntie Sally, I want to go to teacher training because of my allowance. Aspirations was not part of it. So it was about the socioeconomic conditions. I need to come and take care of the family. My mother is waiting. So the monthly money that will come, that will support. So it's not about her. So if you don't have a conversation with her, okay, so beyond that, these are the options available. You become a big woman here. You can come back with the money. So let's talk to them. Technology, there's so much they can do with technology, but there are still fears. That's what the gender divide with. You guys are in the digitization space, so Men will be given the devices. There's a lot of data. Men have the devices. Most women don't have the devices. If you're calling, it's the phone. Even for some of the girls who are entrepreneurs and you have to send them money, the phones are with their husbands. You call and you say, I sent you money for your enterprise. This I haven't received it. Check your husband's memo. It's with the husband or the boyfriend. And the money cannot be accounted for. So there's a lot, but there's gender conversations. But when it comes to career, we must be deliberate about engaging. Rural girls, rural communities do not have a lot of exposure about what is possible. Urban, they're fortunate to see and to hear the benefit of television, the benefit of social media exposure. Rural, if we want to do rural and support rural, we need to do a lot more talking and transporting role models for them to hear, videos, audios to listen to, and connect with the dream, and then begin to nurture the desire to shift.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Sally. Powerful note on exposure, right? You need that exposure. Someone to be that window of opportunity for you to share, to learn from their story, the path they took, and to encourage yourself and say, this is something I can do as well. That was inspiring. Thank you, Sally. At this point, the floor is opened. If you have any questions to ask, you can either drop it in the chat box, or you can come off mute, or you can use the virtual interactive tools like raising your hand, and I'll be glad to call you. If you have, it might not be a question, it might be a contribution to the discussion, it might be a reflection to the discussion. Please do all to come off mute and share with us. But then while I wait, I know that my people are very interactive. While I wait, I'll read some comments in the chat box. Rita is on fire, and she's saying that this discussion has a lot of work to be done. Since education has reached more corners, certain thoughts need to be cleared. The job space should be gender balanced. The society must encourage the learners to undertake challenging tasks rather than discouraging them. Thank you very much, Rita. And she asked that this is reality talk. Awesome. Patrick, your hand is up. Patrick, please take it.
Okay, good evening, Madam Sarah, Sally, and good evening, Lawrence, too. I think this is a very insightful topic that you have delved more into it, and I'm really impressed about that. Well, my question is about those of us at the rural areas that we help the case, especially the female girls. Some of them, excuse me to say, to know their cycles, the problem, and to confine the teacher is very, headache for them. Sometimes we see the mess, we have to go to them. Even some of the teachers that we provide for what they use. So my question is, can the government make it free for them, those are the rural areas, to use that? Because it is something that it really hurts a lot. You be in a class, child will come to you, he's messed up. You just even know when he's coming. So we feel the pain sometimes. So I have make myself a personal, let's say, a doctor, whatever. And I see that you're not feeling well, I'll ask you, are you ovulating or are you doing something? I will try to be of help. So this is something that it bothers a lot. So we wish that even the government will not even tax that, make it free for girls to use that, because it's not, as you said, to go to that 5 days is not that easy. And being in a class, then that kind of psychological effect and going through all this is not that easy. So I love the teachings that are given to today. God bless you for that.
Laurie, just a quick comment.
Yes, please go ahead, Sally.
Let me celebrate Patrick, for bringing that into the room and sort of dedicating time to walk girls through their cycle and things like that. So an example of what conversation should I have with 10, 12 girls? It could be about their cycles, just educating them, because they are not aware. They just don't know it, So even as a male teacher, taking advantage of that opportunity together with the boys and running them through, this is what it is. At this point, it is like this. And sometimes this is how you feel when you are getting close to. that's sort of a blessing, I always say that there are different types of jobs in this world. There are some jobs that do not deal with human beings. But when you are fortunate or unfortunate to be in a job that is about nurturing young people, it's not about job. It's a mission. So you do it with everything that you have because the life of another human being has been placed in your hands. So if you're a teacher, it would be great to go the extra mile to support your girls. Appreciate that because for most rural schools, we do not have the female teachers who are doing that. We have, if you go to the ministry and you are asking for guidance and counseling, the guidance and counseling teachers are also male. That is not to say they cannot do the guidance and counseling, but that means there's a lot that the girls will not go to them to talk about. So the male teacher needs to come to the table with his feminine heart as well to do a balanced job. Always assume that they are your girls, always assume that they are your daughters or your younger sisters and offer them the extra help. As for period poverty and the government taxing sanitary pads, we all need to speak up about it when we have opportunities because it's unhelpful in a country that is sort of 70-80% rural, and so most of our kids, and then we do not have water. So that's the last thing the government should be doing, but our voices have not gotten that far. We still have parts that are taxed. And so girls are using all kinds of things. I once visited some community in the eastern region. Oh, you'll be marveled at the things that the girls use. So as people in the space, let's just be deliberate and show up to support them somehow. So thanks very much. I salute you for the extras that you're doing for the girls in your class.
Interesting. Thank you. I don't know how much government is making from tax and sanitary pads, and I don't know how many roads they intend to construct by that because by that amount, I mean, I'm still yet to come to terms with the rationale behind tax and sanitary pads. They will take away tax incentives for their business partners and so on and so forth. And I really get mad when I see all these political party posters all over the country wasting money here. And I don't want to go viral, but that's the reality in Ghana. Hey, Kumfi, Solomon, I think I saw your hand up. Was it Richmond? Okay, it was Richmond. Sorry, Richmond.
Yes, hello, Lawrence. Good evening, and thank you very much for this insightful meeting. And thank Madam Sally. I wanted to say something small. I think about the tax on sanitary pad. I really believe there has to be more than just talking to have a change. There has to be more talking, especially voicing out with voice, like people from the women caucus in parliament and then women in leadership positions. They will have to take more radical action than just the talking, because it's been a very long time and it's very, very unhelpful looking at the conditions. And we who have interactions with the rural areas and how it is like, it's very appalling to see young women who are already in poverty-stricken areas, and they will have to pay additional money for something that it's not really something that is good. But that's not even what I wanted to say. I wanted to comment on the help that men can deliver to the younger women. I think it's very limited, and there is the need for young women to come in more with the empowerment, with helping them. And because in my community like this, Ekumfi, I don't stay there presently, but growing up from there, my classmates from there, they were amazing women, but most of them, looking back, most of them are nowhere close. Almost most of, like, about 80% of those who were very, very good, they didn't even have the chance to go to SHS. And those who had the chance to go to SHS, that was the end. About those that I grew up with, let's say only one or two were able to go to the tertiary. And it's very, very sad because those were the people that they were very challenging in class, and I mean equally brilliant as some of us. And it happened that, let's say, just because they were females, they weren't able to progress through the ladder. And so there's the need for the women who are able to progress to come down really and then connect with them, because there's a limit to what I can do. And I've been speaking with some of the young women to empower them, to guide them. But if you are interacting with them for quite a long time or something, it also creates a perception like it's something different. It comes out, I don't know what comes up with their mind, or they try to now come to rely on you for things that you are not ready to share with. You understand? I hope you understand. So that has been the problem. There's a problem with men helping, and so there's the need for women helping a lot. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if I can see a number of hands. So just brief comment. I think that a number of the women's platforms have elevated the conversation on this period poverty and tax impacts. And some progress is but look at how long it's taking us to get to the affirmative action field. So the progress that has been made is that if you're producing the pass locally, then your raw materials are not taxed. But then if you're importing, I'm sure it is to promote local production and things like that. So some little progress has been made, and I'm sure, yeah, we have to keep pushing for this whole tax business to be addressed properly. But let me say that for most of the women's platforms, I know that it's a big deal and it's on the agenda for conversation. So yes. In terms of women not being available, sort of role models to share, if we don't correct what we're seeing now, this will continue this is the same picture we'll see in the next 10 years, where there are no girls to talk to other girls. I think that the additional thing that perhaps you can do to support your people would be to facilitate those meetings. If you do have one or two girls or young women who were able to progress beyond that, how do you facilitate a session? How do you broker that relationship, invite them and organize your girls for a session with them? There are so many young women in the urban areas who want to give back, but they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to go into a community entry and all of that. But if they are invited to come and sit down and talk to the girls, and so I think you can try one of those as well too. But I deeply appreciate that the more you're close to the girls, sometimes that's the only shoulder that they have, and they begin to leave everything on you. Again, thanks, and we'll get there somehow.
Awesome. So we've had two gentlemen contributing to the discussion. I'll go to, I think Sarah. Sarah, is it Sarah Jima Danso? Do you wanted to contribute?
Yeah, I'd wanted to contribute, but right now where I am, I will find it a bit to do the contribution. So you can go on, please.
All right, please do well to put it in the chat box, and we'll be happy to pick that up. Rita.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Rita.
To Sally, God bless you. In fact, the discussion is very emotional. And talking about help, where male teachers often help to females, I think they should consider their emotions too. Because as the females get closer to the males, if you don't set boundaries, you may go off track. And when things like that happen, you see the dreams of the girl child become shattered. And at the end of the day, we always say the rural areas, the girls are not pushing. Sometimes you say they are very good, but a trained teacher went there, and at the end of the day, what happened? She became pregnant. The teacher will leave the girl there with a child, and now she cannot progress. So please, We should also talk to our male teachers. When they are offering help to the females, I think they should hide some of their feelings for us. Thank you.
Thank you. That female girl you are helping could be your younger sister or your daughter. Once you have that at the back of your mind. Of course, last Friday I saw a video of a Ugandan father who's been sleeping with his daughter since his wife died and has impregnated her 7 times and caused an abortion 7 times. So even a father is doing that to their daughter. No. So again, it's about principles and boundaries and realizing that we're saving humanity and we will account for it one day. So thank you.
Thank you, Sally. I think there's a last question. I'm going to take a last question in the chat box, and that's from Gertrude. I don't know whether I missed that, but Gertrude says, what conversations or initiatives should be amplified, especially from natives who have been fortunate to break free from the examples of the girl you shared in Northern Ghana to help fast track this change mindsets, especially in cases where the family depend on the girl child? Probably sharing from what you have seen to seem to work.
Okay, I don't know if I get this correctly, but case studies are very, very powerful. Case studies of success stories. For us in the development space, we collect stories of others to share with the donor and to publish, but not to share with our community leadership and to discuss the enablers, you know. So that's one shift that we need to do. There's so many young people that are doing well from rural communities but are settled in the urban spaces. So first of all, just that invitation to come back once a while, you know. I don't attend my school homecoming, whatever, but in rural communities, if there's one shining star who's ended up in a whatever, if they bring their people together, they make a lot of difference. So case studies with rural communities and case studies with community leaders, they like to see evidence. You know, the talk is been the same. They like to see what people have become moving out of the community. So I think it's one of the things that we can do as development workers or people in that space supporting to nurture other people. When there's one good story, don't stop sharing it. People reflect on it, and then that's where those tight barriers begin to loosen up a little bit every now and then. For the girls themselves, I guess we're also wrapping up. The girls themselves, sexual reproductive health conversations never stop. Like there's no way we can stop having those conversations with the girls. Beyond the boundaries that male teachers build, this is content that the girls need for themselves. Even as matured women, sometimes your body is changing because of our biological makeup. We're not the same. Every 5 years, you have changed. You're a totally different person. So girls need to continue to know themselves. And if all we have are male teachers, we'll beg them to position themselves in the space to do that for the generation of women coming up who they currently are serving. Yeah, Lawrence, I hope I answered the question in terms of conversations we need to amplify.
Yeah, absolutely. You've mentioned case studies, you've mentioned sharing stories with the girls. Yeah.
Bring the models back, facilitate their coming back somehow.
Yeah. Interesting. And so Gertrude, you can, I mean, you are always in Dulugu, so you are a case study. Your story is always inspiring. Gertrude is one of our success stories, has a very nice success story to share in terms of female empowerment, becoming a catalyst and now serving as our Northern Regional Coordinator. Yeah, and she's gone far. was with African Science Academy and got opportunity to travel outside the country, a whole lot. And so, Gertrude, you're a case study. And I'm sure anytime you find yourself in Dulugu, you have a powerful story to tell. We've gone past 6, and I want to draw the curtain on the conversation. Thanks to all those who have shared your reflections in the chat box. And thank you very much, Sally. To wrap up, don't be in a haste to drop out. We have another mega event coming up. It's mega because this is all about digitalization. Everyone is talking about digitalization. Vice President is talking about digitalization. Everyone is talking about this digitalization. So we want you to join our Meet the Team events, which is tied to the 2024 December Big Give appeal, focusing on gaining further digital tools for our sports. And last year, some of you remember the whole campaign through Wanderlust Ghana and the process of being able to raise some funds to get some digital tools. And at the moment, most of our sports have been provided tablets. Some have 2 tablets now, and we hope to increase the numbers. You can imagine if 20 learners are crowded around 1 tablet, that isn't the best. And so make a date, join this event and get to know more about our plans for the future. Girls' vision for the future. There's our plans for the future. And of course, girls have a place in this plan of digitalization. And I think Sally mentioned this today, that even in the digital world and in virtual spaces, the system of patriarchy is still dominant and prevailing, because then you call someone and the husband picks and doesn't want you to talk to the wife, and so on and so forth. And so come and listen to our plan for girls when it comes to digitalization. We value your feedback. Farida, I know there's supposed to be a survey link, isn't it? And so
Yeah, I've shared it in the chat.
awesome. And so before you drop off, please spare some probably 5 minutes to respond to our survey. We want to know more about your thoughts. I suppose it's anonymous, and so feel free to share your impressions and reflections and thoughts, suggestions about this talk. And finally, our newsletter. So when you go to our website, you can subscribe to our newsletter. It will pop up, and you can get updates about our work, what we are doing, opportunities at EduSpots, and of course, how you can always support our work. And on this note, thank you, Sally, for making time to be part of our conversation and for your ongoing commitment at EduSpots. I know that a woman of your caliber, you have a lot of priorities, but then it's very inspiring to know that you can find time, come to our level, and share your experience with us. Thank you very much, Sally, for your time this evening.
Thank you very much, Sally.
Thanks for having me. And Lawrence, thanks for the conversation.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining. Thank you all for joining. Let's keep inspiring our girls. Do whatever you can in your own right to ensure that one girl is inspired and you have a success story, a case study to share based on your own commitment to empowering girls. Thank you all. Till we meet again, have a good evening. Bye-bye.